All right. Let's see. Test, 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 test. Probably, probably is fine. All right. So it's been a while, and I figured today instead of Python, instead of C++, instead of even C or Java or C Sharp, for for all that matters. Today we're going to do some JavaScript, um, specifically P5. And I'm on a Linux computer. However, this is secondary. You do not have to be on Linux. You don't have to be on Windows. It doesn't really matter. So for this here, I'm just going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this like YouTube stream. And in here, I'm just going to right click, go into terminal, type in code, and this is going to pop up a nice little Visual Studio or Visual Code editor. And this is just going to help me type some stuff out. So I'm going to hit Control Shift and P, and here I'm going to hit Create a P5 project, and I'm going to make sure that I'm clicked onto the YouTube stream folder. We're going to hit Select Folder like that. Let's kind of go back to Visual Code here. Select folder. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah. So sometimes it does that. It's kind of weird. I'm just gonna go ahead and hit no. But so with P5 and JavaScript, it's kind of like a hybrid of online and I mean you can in fact like connect this to a web page if you so desired. So for example, if I go to my website here, I have a couple games created over in how you would say P5 processing. And if we go over here to, it'd be right click, view page source, you can see kind of how the HTML is laid out. And then I'm also using a style sheet, cascading style sheet, which is CSS. This just basically formats your page to look a certain way. And then if we kind of take a look here, we actually have the code, the JavaScript. And then in this case, we got, this silly little game where you grow your folder size and you're trying to kill these corrupted things before they touch your folder. And if you touch your folder, of course it grows in size. If these guys touch your folders, they become smaller, and same with you, and eventually you will die in blue screen. I also made a little card game thing. This does take a second to load. It has kind of like a preload asset thing. And so this is similar to like Marvel Snap. And it's got some definite glitches here, but for the most part, it's a nice little thing. And of course, there's a game that was made in a game jam with a group of people through Godot, and it's nice that you can kind of load that to a web page as well. Now, the reason I wanted to kind of like do a processing P5, a little processing P5 stream is the coding train. So I really like his content. It's fantastic. He knows a lot. He does a lot. And with P5, it's very fast to prototype things. So I'm quite excited. And specifically today, what we're going to be going over mainly is an input manager. So there is a thing, and let me I'm gonna actually open up Steam real quick. The way that I load Aseprite on my Linux PC is through Steam here. So I've found some some interesting workarounds to get certain things to cooperate better for me. So let's just go like File New, and we're just gonna click this because I want to kind of showcase a concept here. So we're gonna go to the pencil here and make it big. All right. So what we have, or what we're kind of going for here, is I'm gonna kind of draw like a little radio tower, and it's gonna have like a little signal being broadcasted. It actually kind of looks like a volcano, but whatnot. And we're gonna have little doohickeys, and these guys are gonna be subscribing to this signal. The reason I kind of like this is a lot of the time before I would code a system where it's like, hey, if I push a key, so I pushed that key, then the player would move, so on and so forth. And I would hard code a lot of this inside of like in C++. It would be in the fixed update. Typically I code in SFML, so it'd be like if SF keyboard is button pressed or is key down, do this, then that, then the other. But this kind of presents some cool abstraction abilities. And so in here in processing, actually P5 processing is very, very similar. They come with a key pressed and a key released function. And so here we could be like, print the key. And if I was to run this, so if we go back here, so file save here, and one thing we're going to want to inspect the console, and I push a button, you can see which key is pressed, which is fine and dandy. But what we don't want to do is have like an object here and say like, if this type of stuff, so on and so forth. We kind of want to have it a lot smaller in a sense, a lot more condensed, a lot more discrete. So here, I'm going to just call this like an input manager.javascript file. I'm going to create the file. We're going to come back here. I'm actually going to erase those, and we're going to put those there. And here, I'm going to create a simple class. Now in JavaScript, classes have constructors that are actually quite like this, which is kind of interesting, honestly. And in this input manager, we're going to have a listener. Is basically what we're gonna call it. Let's see. So like this dot listener equals that. This creates us a list, and then this dot keys is also going to equal to that. So let's see. Let's actually increase the font size here. So let me go to edit. Zoom in, view, appear, zoom in again. Just kind of check in. Yeah, I mean, it looks ish. Let's close out of that. Don't really need that, and then we don't really need that as well. All right, so Weird thing in JavaScript. I could come down here and be very explicit and create our members, and then I could again put them in the constructor, kind of like you would do with C++ or Java. However, JavaScript is kind of feels like cheating in a lot of ways, because I can put these here and it automatically creates the variable, which is just fantastic. But so I'm going to add a listener, and then we're not going to actually create a function for removing a listener. That's the other thing too with a lot of the new AI stuff. As you can see, it's populating things for me quite quickly like that. It's quite strange. But what we also need to do is have some functions. So I'm going to do a key down function. And this key down is going to take in a key, and it's going to add this to our list of keys. So I'm just going to say this dot keys dot push key, and then key up is going to be the reverse. So we're going to have a key, and here we're going to just say this dot key dot delete key. So this is going to add the key, this is going to remove the key. And so far it's like, okay, well, what is going on here? We created these variables and 3 of these functions, but all you're doing is adding to a list. And arguably, yes. And why would I do this? So the idea is we have kind of like a group, and this group is going, hey, if we're part of the same like organization, we're allowed to have explicit rights to certain things. And with that said, the main thing, so like all these here, these are kind of like helper functions, from the add listener to the key up, key down. Those are just helpers. The main thing is this. We want things to be able to be notified. And this is the biggest thing here. And as you can see, it's trying to auto-populate. And if we look here, it goes, go through the list of listeners. If that index has on input, then do this. This looks fine, but this isn't quite exactly what I had in mind. I'm gonna, oh wow, hitting tab just completely auto-populated that quite quickly. So we're just gonna go, for let listener of this listener, and then here if and we're gonna go like this, Control T. Ooh, Control T is not that. I think Control Shift I. Yeah, okay. So Control Shift I is formatting. This thing was being kind of funky. I'm really big fan of formatting my code similar to C++ as much as possible. Now when you're typing a different language, yeah, you should technically go with the confines in which their paradigm persists in. However, everybody's got their preferences. So, I mean, it's all good. So what exactly have we done here? We created this input manager, this mystical thing. And it has the ability to add listeners, and then these key up and key down have an ability to push these keys. Now, on input, doesn't exist, right? It goes, hey, what is this? And it's taking in this dot keys. Okay, that's fine. So it's taking in this list, but it doesn't exist, right? And that's fine. We're just going to ignore that. It's absolutely fine. I'm actually going to create a new file, and we're going to call this our entity. And here, we're gonna do a couple things. So I'm gonna call this let type equal, and here we're gonna do like a background, and it's gonna be a 0. And then notice the JavaScript is already knowing relatively like, hey, this is what's happening here. In this case, we're gonna have a couple different things here. The order doesn't really matter too much, but this is fine. A background, a player, and a tree. Something very basic. And here, we're gonna create our entity class. Now, there's a couple other things I like to do, actually a little bit beforehand. So we're going to create a vector2 class. I'm just going to call it vec2. And in the constructor, it's going to take an x and y, and it's going to be this dot x is x, this dot y is y. It already knows. And then similar, I'm actually going to do a vector3 with the same concept. Now this vector3, this is going to be our color, and vector2, this is going to be our position, size, you know, the typical stuff. And then we can make our entity here. So here, notice it's taking in a type, a position, a size, and a color. This is fine. This is fine. The auto population does kind of bug me, but I mean, this is what we have to type anyways. So here, I'm going to create our onInput event. And we're going to take in keys, and we're going to say if keys.has, and here we're going to say w, and then so on and so forth. So we'll have W, S, A, and D. So up, down, left, and right. And this is just our onInput. And here we're going to have a move function. Now move, we're gonna do a direction as well. And for the constructor, we're just gonna kind of do it like this. So this dot direction is gonna equal to a new vec2. Just something very, very simple here. And that way on the input, we're just gonna have these directions kind of spawn in for us like this. That didn't belong there. So yeah, so this is just going to control our direction. And at the bottom, we're going to pass in our move. And this is going to take in the direction. So down here, it'll fill in that parameter. And what's happening for move here, I do hate some of this auto format. I mean, it just likes to jump around. Quite cumbersome sometimes, like when it's doing that. I'm just gonna go like that for a second just to have some brevity. Wow, what in the world? Okay, So anyway, this thing's taking in some direction, and it needs to move, and it also needs some type of speed. So here we're just going to say this dot speed. You know what? We're not going to put in the constructor because everything is an entity, and you know that kind of argues about the direction too. But you know what? That's fine. For now, this dot speed is 0.1. Later I'll kind of discuss a little deeper on why this is something you may not want to do for every entity. Deals with the fact that not all entities would move, so not all would need a speed. But we have an input, W, S, A, and D. This passes the direction here. And here, this would simply mean that this dot position dot X, just like this, and it autofilled it. Basically, our position is going to change with our speed and our direction. In a sense, too, this is going to be over delta time, which is something that P5 provides for us. So it's quite nice. And then here, typically, I would have like a draw, something to draw these guys. So I'm gonna call it render in this case. And for the render, we're gonna fill those colors. In this case, I am going to use circle. Well, we do have size and you know what? We're gonna actually stick with rectangles. We'll just make some rectangular collision. It's no big deal. Radial collision's easier, but rectangular is doable on this string as well. So just to kind of like rehash here, we have an input manager. It has notify events. These are empty. Our sketch is pretty much empty. So even if we were to save and look at it, it'll just be a blank background. We have a type, background player tree. We have this going on. We have an entity. We have these and the render thing. But now we kind of need to start building the actual, like, hey, I want to see stuff on the screen. So I'm going to make a scene class. And you know what? This technically should be in its own file here. So here's our scene. And in our scene, we're going to use kind of like a map system. And for that, I'm going to say let layers equal. So we're going to have a background, entities, and I'm going to call this UI. So this is going to be our background here. And in our constructor, I'm going to create a map. So let's say it'd be like this dot. I don't want to call it all or bucket. Let's see. It's kind of like a. So let's just call it render equals a new map. So this is going to be our map guy here, and add to layer, and I don't think it quite knows exactly what I'm going for here, so I'm going to try to God damn. it just really likes to think it knows all the things. So entities, and we're going to need also a list of our entities here. Let's just say, you know what, that's fine as well. We'll just say this dot entities is equal to a list. And so it'd be this dot render dot set layer and entities. Should be fine. Render layers. So for the layer and entities of this renderer, for let entity of entities, that seems fine. The only thing is we don't need, this is redundant here. You should be able to just say entity.render. And then layer here as well is not ever read. Just checking here. Trying to do some thinking here, because what we want to do is only render the entities that we declare to that layer. So of course, each I wonder too, each entity, because if we use a single entity added to the layer, no, we want a list. We want a list of all of our guys that belong to that layer attached to the layer. Let's do some map get JavaScript. So it goes key in a value. So get apples is going to return 500. So in a similar sense, we want to do layer dot get kind of like that, which is interesting that it likes to do that so quickly. Could not find layer. Ah, yes. We'll fix that in a second. Right. Because what we're doing here is going to draw them in our layers. So this renderer gets the this, and then for each entity within this chunk, we're going to render, so on and so forth. So we add to the layer, we render the layers. Here I'm going to make a function called clear, and that's just simply going to set the background to 55. And then here we can just say draw. Actually, this is where we're going to end scene. Scene is complete. File, save all. We're going to make one new file, and we're going to call this the game. Ooh, game.javascript. And just let's kind of look here for a second. So just to kind of go over what we've done here. The sketch simply, this is like our initial, and this is our update loop. This input manager here can add listeners, and it has a key down, key up thing that's going to add keys pressed and remove them. And here is kind of like where we're going to call those. So for example, we're going to make a instance of input manager, and I'll just do it here. I'll say input equals a new input manager, and we'll say let that way. Then here input.key down, and this would be our input.key up, and it passes in our key. And this is going to add keys and remove them. So it's added to the list when it's pressed, and it's removed from the list when it's not. The notify event is going to ask each listener if it implements on input to listen to this. Our input manager is created. Inside of entity here, we describe some basic things. We have the on input method implemented, and it knows how to move and render itself. Inside scene here, we have some layers. We have a constructor. We can add to the layers, and we have a clear and a render type setup. And then inside the game itself, we can just go ahead and make a game, and inside the constructor here, we can make a new scene. This is actually quite interesting. As you can see here, it has an idea of what we're trying to accomplish. This is incorrect here. So here, I would call this draw. This would be load. And so this scene.clear as well. And just kind of checking here, he's going to be red. Let's go ahead and see if this works, just right off the bat. So inside of our index.html, this is where it's looking for all of our sources. So we have kind of an interesting thing here, and I'm going to try to load it kind of like top down of how we define this. So I'm going to put input manager, and then we did, I believe, entity, and then we did our scene, and then game. So this has those things loaded, and then inside of our sketch, up at the top, I'm just going to say let game, and we should be able to get rid of that background as well. And we're just going to hit File, Save All, and come over here and refresh and look at the errors. So uncaught type reference can't access for each. This .render.get is undefined, and it comes up over in here. So this .render.get is undefined. So let's take a look at scene. This .render, it's a new map. .get for each is undefined. Can't access property for each. You know, I do wonder. I don't think that'll fix it. We'll just kind of go like this for now. Entity dot render. Let's see what that kind of brings us. Refresh. So I do see a box here. So that's interesting. So this .keys.delete is not a function. How about remove? Is it pop in this case? Okay, looks like it looks like it likes pop. So with lists, there's a couple things there to be you know, honest. There is certain lists that implement push and pop. There's some that are add and remove or add delete, or there's just a lot of different keywords for different lists here. Now, when I push something, nothing happens, and that's because of this notify event guy is never being triggered. If we look here in game, even though we add a listener, we never update. So over here in update, if we do input.notify event, and then we run this update inside of our draw here, so our game.update, refresh, console, type error, keys.has is not a function. Okay, now I feel like, oh, so I was doing a list, and I do want delete here. This needs to be a set. That explains that. And what's going on here? I believe it would be add. File, save, refresh. Aha! We have movement. Now notice there was kind of like no background being set there, and this .scene.clear did not seem to be working, and this makes sense because this is typical of how processing works. So here we can see our canvas moving. Now notice it's kind of like way off in the corner. If we do let canvas equal, then we can actually set the position. And I'm gonna just do like a 500 by 200. This will allow it to be more centered for us. And here, if I push, we can see movement, which is fantastic. If we go into our entity and look at move here, it's always going to be the direction times the stat speed times delta time being put into here, and it's never being reset. So I'm going to put some otherwises in here, and on the final I'm going to say like this. That way it's going to reset our movement when we're no longer pushing. So yeah, this is kind of an interesting way to go about it, right? Because the input manager is a singleton, and input is looking for if the key down event has happened, and if the listener has implemented on input, then yeah. And each entity here has actually implemented on input, but the biggest thing here is this add listener, right? Because this is only looking for the list of listeners. So without being added to the list, they never listen for the event. And the way that we that I have kind of created this system here like this, we should have a really easy time of doing stuff like this. So let's call this like the background, and change that to background. I'm going to say the position here is going to be 0, 0, but we're going to be the screen width and screen height here. So I'm going to say let screen width equal, let's go like 800 by 600. We're going to pass these variables in here. I'm going to come back and screen height. Background, red. We're going to make player green. File, save all. Go back, boom. And so notice the player is on top of the red background. And if we were to, I don't know, let's add a couple other things. So like, let's just call this like a tree. And here I'm going to call, I don't know, like 5300. And it's going to be 50 by 50 or 16 by 16. Let's say it's blue. Go here, call it tree, file, save, boom, refresh. Looks like we do have a overriding layer problem here. Just kind of taking a look. Right. So the easiest way for to kind of solve this overriding layer problem is a couple more lists here. So we could have like a UI list and a background list. And you know, it's not necessarily the best system doing it like that, but it will solve these problems here. And if we just kind of look in, so entities, game, you know what? I think we'll do it like this. And we'll do this dot scene dot background dot push the background, and push the tree, and then here it would be kind of like that. I'm gonna test real quick. Yep, that'll do. And just to kind of fix this guy as well, and then I'll kind of show what's going on a little bit more, and then we'll make a better. Actually, we'll just make a better function right now. Add to background. So this the background is going to push whatever we put there. This is going to be add to entities, and then this is going to be add to UI. Scene dot add to background. And you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do an even different way on this as well. We're gonna abstract away from that as well. So we're just going to call these from here, and similarly, kind of like this. That way, instead of calling add to layer, we're going to have a add all to layers. So we're going to have a single call like this. Right, so what's happening here is we have our background, and that needs to be called background, and then as we add these, then we have a player, and we add that, and to create like some other things here. Let's say, I don't know, let's call this your typical like enemy. It's an enemy type. Add here. We'll give it like 30, 30, and this will be kind of a mixture of colors here. Remember, only player has input. Refresh. All right, so as you can see, the enemy is over top of the player because it was called after within that list. And the UI would also be over top of both. So if we did like over here, let UI, and we would call that UI, let's say it's at the bottom of the screen, so let's do like screen width divided by 2. You know that's my screen width because I spelled it wrong. And let's do like screen height, subtracted by 200. Let's make its size 100 by 30. Let's make the UI all 3 colors, and then add it to that. File, save, go like this, refresh. You can see the AI. It's going to be over top of player. This little blue thing is on the same layer as the background, and this yellow guy is technically on the same layer as the player as well. And a great way to show that is if we added a listener to the enemy, and this is kind of the nice thing about entity component systems, is now our little yellow guy will move, and you can see that he is still over top that layer, but he would also be below this layer. So yeah, that's kind of like how I like to start to build systems. Is you use maps as like a render layer. You use the input manager to then create certain entities to subscribe to events. You have a kind of like an kind of like a separation, I suppose. I was going to say like obfuscation or something. I can't pronounce it quite well. But you have a separation between what an entity is, what makes up a scene, like how do you go about describing a scene, and then the game itself has just the update and the draw. And this kind of separates the different concepts from each other. And if we wanted to load in like a background, or like, excuse me, if we wanted to load in images here, so let me just kind of get rid of that. We could create a simple asset manager to go up on top of this. If I go into here and create a new folder, call it assets, and I'm actually going to go into my website GitHub repository, and we're just going to copy this folder here and go back into YouTube Stream, paste, apply, merge. So this is going to give us a background, a player, and a tree. This way we can, inside of our entity logic, kind of create like an asset manager. So we do class asset manager, and here it looks like it would like us to do a map. Just kind of letting it autofill as I'm reading that. You know, a map ain't bad. It's got decent lookup time. The name, the asset. Name the asset. Get name would return the asset. You know what? We're fine with that, I guess. So we're going to just say let assets equal, just kind of like this. And this is kind of like the nice thing about JavaScript is we're able to do this typeless calls that make things really fast for prototyping. Now, if you want something good, C++ is definitely the way you want to go about this. But the way I'm seeing it is we have an asset. We can pass in the name where that, in a sense, would be... I'd prefer to use the word type here. And so we pass in the type, we pass in the asset, and this would store this, and we should be able to get it just by passing the type like that. So over here in a preload function, that's incorrect. I like how it was guessing though. So we're going to let assets in the preload here. We're going to say asset is a new asset manager. We're just going to kind of look at types real quick. I wonder. Yeah, since JavaScript is typeless, this becomes a string, which is fine. But just to make it a little more readable, this is technically what's happening. And so when it hits our entity here, those are kind of like what we're looking for. And we're also just going to kind of erase our enemy there. Completely unnecessary. And that way, and there's another thing I noticed here as well that's kind of interesting. We might be able to like conjoin a lot of these ideas together. But this this call, when I call tree, player, or background, it should call this back here. So this load asset guy, asset manager, it takes in a type and an asset. Sketch. We kind of want it like this, because this will preload our systems, and then over in our entity here, instead of this here, we could have that this.image is equal to that. And that way, we could just populate it like that. And now, if we refresh, and we can kind of see our tree there. It's quite small, player's quite big. Go back here. I'm going to say player, you're going to be like 16 by 16. Tree, you can be like 16 by 32. Yeah. Position. This is fine. Save. Boom. Refresh. No, it's kind of small. So let's do a 32 by 32 and a 32 by 64. And while we're at it, before we go back, I'm gonna say let posx equal 0, let pos y equal 0, and then we're gonna say random between, let's go like 30 and string width minus 30, and this is what posx is going to equal. times y is going to equal that. Those can populate. And we're going to say for let I basically this is basically going to loop through our list and populate a bunch of trees for us. And you know what? I think technically that should be fine. So now when I file save and refresh, should have a bunch of trees. And this is this is nice. What the heck happened there? That was interesting. Huh. Just kind of reload that. There was a weird glitch. I just started like lazily leaning to the left, and then stuff did not occur correctly. I think it has something to do with this. Let's see. Ba. Yeah, I think it does have something to do with that. Not quite sure what though. Let's see here. Just kind of looking. Goes up to 10. Produces their 10 trees. I think there might be an issue. Not seeing any input. That's still. What happens if this is outside the for loop? Straight up lost our input. Let's go into our input manager and just say oh, must have caps lock on. So print our key. File, save, boom, refresh. Okay, well, we have input back. leave it to JavaScript for your input to just magically disappear. So we'll put that back in the loop, refresh. Okay, yeah, we have input again. And where I will stop is collisions with these trees. So so far, we have a decent system here. You know what? What if we add that back to the entities layer? Oh, that's a GitHub there. No, still has no issue. Weird glitches. Technically, yeah, my beard's a little itchy today. Technically, that should be on the entity layer. And the reason why is we want to check collision for all guys on the entity layer. So here inside of our entities, you know what? I don't think it matters if it's an entity, honestly. I think scene may be better for this. Check layer collision I suppose we will write a check collision over here. Check collision. And is it going to auto-populate that for us too? So if this position is less than the other, opposite side, okay. Collision offset. How far is this going to go? AI is mad fucking nuts, guys. Look at that. I think it would be like that. Ain't no way that works. Well, you know, it might work if I put it in the loop. Because right now, it's just kind of like sitting there. So, so let's just do this scene. So check layer collision is taken in. I'm pausing here because I don't necessarily want to pass in anything else. Like, I don't want to just say, you know, trees there or something. So I'm wondering. I don't think that's going to work. That's my honest opinion. The hell was that? You're kidding me. It's definitely detecting collision. But, what the hell? That's just fucking crazy looking. Check here for a second. Collision offset takes in an entity. Check collision takes in an entity. So in our scene, our entity is grabbing it. This is a list. So for this of this, we're just for let I is equal to 0, I is less than that length. Then we're going to loop through it through the J. Okay, that's probably going to do the same thing, be my guess. All right. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Probably our collision offset then, be my guess. You know what? I would think it would more likely be the one calling this would be no return game. That would be scene since there's no return. Save, boom, refresh. Do we get the same thing? Similar. Interesting. Huh. Well, that's a kind of a unique collision system. Just kind of going here. So this is what this is saying is if this case is true, so if the position of the x is greater than or equal to the offset in the x, then it's 0. Otherwise, it's 1. Oh, it's 1. Otherwise, it's -1. That is what that is saying. So 0.1. Let's do it kind of like that. And you know, it's quite interesting because this is being called by this. This entity here is is our J's. That is just very unique. Did you guys see that? Those guys offset from each other too. They were too close at spawn. Huh. So we do have collision It's not the most perfect collision because it doesn't stop the impact, but it does do the proper offset separation there. So that is interesting. Um, I wonder too because each guy is calling this, so that's it's quite interesting there. Um, I wonder too if a simple fix would just be the speed thing we had talked about. So we're gonna have a set speed like this and erase this variable here completely, because what this will do is technically we should pass in a float there. Well, but what this should technically do is the tree should not have a speed anymore. Huh. Wow. Aha. The -1 there. Very, very important. And then we can just increase that offset value now to be more normal. And that might be a little much of an increase. Right. So as you can tell, as we approach an object, it lets us get close and it's going to push us off. It's actually quite nice. I think that might be the best collision system I have taken part of. Interesting. I'll have to look deeper into that system. The only other thing here as well that I want to do, and this will be real quick. You see this happen, or you hear this talked about a lot with like Unity and Unreal and Godot, that physics only happen in the fixed update. But what the hell does that even mean, right? Well, what that really means is there's an amount of time that is ticking, and only X amount of stuff is happening for that. So here in the game, we're just going to say this dot current time is equal to our millis. We don't want a delta time there. We want a kind of like a previous time. Maybe not previous. How do I want to word this? Because there's like an accrued time. So time increment potentially. And here we would say something like okay, so that's interesting. We don't want delta time there. That would make a conflict. So what we're going to do is change in time. So just kind of checking here. And here is where we would do that. So our collision should be broken now. Nope. It's just about the same. So yeah, this is see, new time is equal to millis, which that is technically what current time is as well when this begins. So this is like a 0.016, and as this is increasing through fixed update, the change in time is being created. Current time is always going to be equal. I don't think that's correct. Here, I think actually we want like just going to kind of play around with this here. So if time increment is greater than 30, yeah, that should be fine. Yeah, so this isn't a perfect collision system by any means. It is a rather interesting one though. And what we've accomplished here is we started a P5 project from absolute scratch. We then created a custom input manager that has a set and a list. We add things to the list. We add keys to the set. Somehow printing that line fixed the bug. We just, who knows? And we have a notifier checking for the listeners, and these are creating inputs and setting that to our set. Inside of our entity here, it takes in a type, a position, a size, and a color. Based on that type is the asset it's going to get. We defined types and assets like this. Position and color as such. This is completely unnecessary. In fact, I believe everything would run just the same if we just went like this. File, save, boom, boom. Ah. We do have color somewhere. Might be in, you know what, that's an interesting thing. Where do we have color? Oh, when we're actually creating those guys there, right? So just kind of showcasing that, originally before the assets, we did have a color system. That color system is not necessary in the slightest. So you can, just disregard it if you have assets. But the asset manager uses a map Similar how the input manager uses a set, and then we describe what an entity is. Set speed is probably, again, completely useless to us. So if we go back to game here, this has no effect on the actual trees themselves. That was just an issue with the collision itself. And so back to entity here, we describe what an entity is: position, size, has a direction, grabs the image based off the type it is, and they all have speed. This is a offset and a collision detection. On input is the implemented thing. It takes in keys and it goes, yo, does keys have this thing? If it does, determine the direction. Otherwise, direction is null. And this is our move. This is how we describe move and render. Then in the scene itself, we have described layers. We created 3 different containers, buckets, systems for these layers. We then can render them. We created some helper functions to push those lists, populate them, so to speak. Add to layer takes in a layer and an entity, and we simply use this as a helper function to add everything in our scene using this call here. Check collision layer does all the collisions for the guys within our layer. That's all it cares about. And then we have a simple clear and a simple render. That way in the game itself, we can only care about time and initializing who is in our game. Fixed update is determining to only calculate collisions every 30 frames. And even though this.fixed update is running in the update loop, this part only happens X amount of time. And then we are clearing and we are rendering. Now, arguably, could we just have put background 55 in the draw loop? Could we have just shoved everything in here and here? Yeah, absolutely. And why not? I mean, if you're making a quick game, you might as well. Did we need to do an input manager? No, absolutely not. Do entities need to be weird in a sense like this? No. And this is not just a symptom of JavaScript, C++, Python, C#, Java, C. I mean, maybe a little bit with C. Jokes aside, but these things that I'm talking about isn't just a symptom of the language. These different coding organizational paradigms are simply to make your code more readable, more accessible. Does a computer know what an object is? No, it cares about contiguous memory cells or pointers where you're storing this. So, I mean, depending on who you're working for, what you're doing, what your rationale is behind certain things, I mean, this is perfectly fine. This is a decent way to go about this. Now, the very, very, very last thing I do want to show is, as we've seen here, if we do index.html and we open with the live server, it looks like this, which is fine. But hey Brett, what if I'm building a website? What if this is nice and all, but I already designed a web page and I kind of want my stuff in this my game on my website, and to make the website not look like crap, as the rest of my website looks decent type of stuff. So what I would do is, like in this case, let's say I really like what's going on here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go into GitHub here. I'm going to go into my website, HTML. I'm going to go into RPG. And here, and delete that, and I'm going to paste. So I'm going to pop out into this, open this in terminal, go to code, and inside of here, where I already have a lot of this stuff, I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to go into my index, and I'm going to hit Control A, Control V. And so this page edit, this is the source that's really doing a lot within here. And the style.css as well, if we look at cascading style sheets, we're going back a level for that style so that the style that's actually here is absolutely useless to us. Like this doesn't matter at all. And the only thing here is we want to, in a sense, make this our active page, right? So this is inside of a folder called RPG, and this is where we have like an active type guy. So I'm gonna copy that, put it there. I'm gonna grab this and put it here. And then the only other thing in these index is we can change where these words will populate. You know, I can completely take that section out. And then for this in particular, we would want, let's see, I think the way I'd do it would be input manager, then entity, then scene, then game, then .javascript, and file, save, open into live server, and as you can see, we have what looks like the website, right? Now, notice how that was there and now it's kind of gone type of stuff. So each one of your pages in your index needs that reference there, and it's rather important to have that. So for example, in this JavaScript guy here, notice we didn't have that. So if we go like that, now it's there. In this card game, if we go here, it does have it, but it was called folder focus. So when that happens, you kind of get, you know, some issues. And now you see RPG there. Oop, you won't see it on that one. It's gone on the about page. So if we go into these different HTMLs, we can see, oh yeah, this is where we need these. So now if we file, save here, go to home, refresh. Now no matter if I'm on RPG or card game, see how card game did that? Interesting. So we do have some some issues here. Let's go to close these all out for a second. Let's go up here to card dot index.html. And let's just kind of look back at the symptom here. When we hit card game, so home card game gave us folder focus for whatever reason. So We were on our homepage, hit card game, and it gave us folder focus. Just kind of looking here. This should be like this. Very much very much should be like that. So home, card game. Very interesting. That's I've never had that happen before. Open with live server. RPG is this. Folder focuses cannot get that because that's completely wrong. And that was from the RPG zone. Right. So that means inside of here we have something wrong. That might fix part of it. So home, refresh, RPG, folder focus. Okay, so that the background's gone. Home, folder focus, hit, background, still gone. Is it gone in here? Interesting. Why would that be? So we hit folder focus, which is here, just here. Oh, I don't have that preload system. That's actually only okay. Okay, yep. I'm gonna. That was a rushed fix issue I had to do over SSH one day because I realized the background wasn't there. So that's a separate issue. But the other issue was the card game. And that came from both the home and the other. So card game here. That is not right. That's not right at all. Did I... Hold on. Control Z. No. Did I somehow mess that up bad? Because that should be card.javascript. That should not be there. What in the world is going on here? Okay, so that is really bizarre. I don't know if I accidentally didn't do something correctly there, but we are gonna just straight up go to my site, because that's what that should be. Right. Okay. Weird stuff there. Similarly, we will just kind of do the hotfix like this for folder focus. We will go to, I believe, Sketch here. Copy Sketch out into Gotta make sure I'm on the right indexes. And then, if I remember correctly, it's also something in, I believe, game. Or, no, it'd be in assets, I believe. So one of those guys. View page source. And we're going to look at I don't think it's entity. Well, we'll figure that out here in a second. So I remember it was a really odd thing. So yeah, dealt with background image. So I'm gonna go into here and I'm just gonna start doing Control F. Right, so this is the actual site. We're going to look at game, and we were looking at update and draw. I'm sorry if this is a little confusing what I'm doing right here, but I had a issue. That I noticed a little late one day that caused, yeah, okay, there we go. That caused some stuff to happen. So to be a little bit more descriptive, you can use your CSS to style each of your JavaScript areas as well. And this should seamlessly work for all of your links. You know, that's really the goal here is, and look, about when I go into card game doesn't know about RPG. And so that's kind of what I'm going and doing right now is when you have a website, you want to go through each one of your guys, and when you add a link, you really want to make sure that all the links are in the same area and accessible. So here, you know, we're going to go from index HTML out of the, and this would be called RPG. this we go back a folder. So right now we are in the card game folder. We're going to go back a folder into the RPG folder, and then we're going to find index and load that page. That's all that's doing and saying, and that way you can see the links. And does that shrink? And then that active is what keeps that color orange there. So yeah, this was just kind of a simple way to kind of go through, make a quick little system. And I hope you enjoyed, were entertained, learned something. If you hated it, don't watch. Simple as that. See you guys.